second. My connection is absolutely atrocious tonight. I'm so sorry. That sucks for the both of us, for all of us. But I figured I'd hop on for a second. There's this insanely cool view of Saturn. Every time it kind of clears up, seeing Saturn on the 11-inch is incredible. So bear with me for a little bit. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, if you can hear me okay. Essentially, it shows that it's going up at 21 megs per second, and then it goes to 0. And then it goes back up to 20, then it goes to 0 again, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Maybe it just needs to warm up or something. But if you can hear me okay, what's going on? Anton and Redrum and NGC and Rune Thorson and Jedi Princess. Great to see you all. If you can bear it, I know that it's annoying to listen to things with skips, but yeah, we got a little bit of Moon, a little bit of Saturn, some Jupiter, and it's really late, so I'm going to do just a quick show. Just wanted to check in because I know it's going to be a bit before I stream again. But yeah, look at this amazing shot of Saturn at a tilt. You can see of course, the inner bands, but you can also see the white band around Saturn and the outer ring, the C ring. Whoa, Jesus. Yeah, I think I have a virus on this computer. So let me know in the chat if you just heard those two advertisements. If yesterday I was playing a song, at the end of Golden, I think, one of these ads popped into my headphones, and I felt like it was coming through the mix, but I ended up listening to it today and it didn't come through. So just now I had two ads in my headphones that just appeared out of nowhere. So I guess there's probably some malware. Probably some malware, that's what's going on. I see Richard Garcia, what's going on? And hey hipster, love the new material. I appreciate it. Am I aligning manually? I aligned to Jupiter tonight, and then I moved over and then realigned to the moon. And it was, it made it a little bit tighter. Like last night, the drift was much worse. So I'm not really sure what's going on. I checked, yeah, I'm just gonna let it run for a second. Sorry for all the glitches. Well, I'm so glad you didn't hear the ads. Super annoying. I had this glitch like I think a year ago where things were just popping up out of nowhere on the computer. So I'll have to repair that. Right now it's pushing at 10 megs up, and I think it'll get better shortly, but yeah, that's how we deal. So apologies in advance if the music is like starts and stops, but let's ride for like 30 minutes, edge of space, some beautiful Saturn, and then yeah, it's Monday, Memorial Day. I figured, like, why not? Some people will be up. 3:14 on the East Coast. Here we go again. Play some strut.
Aimlessly wandering away. The nation
long for you, I've been dreaming about the one with you, I've been singing about this dream. So long for you, till I see the color of your eyes reflected in the missing picture I made for you. Oh no, then you know what brings it, and you know what soul can sing to, but you know what brings it. But that was strange. So I moved away from Saturn, and for some reason the connection, like as soon as I moved over to the moon, the connection stabilized. So that's freaky. Anyway, not gonna look a gift connection in the mouth. What's up, Fleet Lightfoot? What's going on? Just saw this. How much longer is it on for? I don't know, I'll go to like 4, maybe like 30 minutes. The moon's gonna disappear in like 10, and then still got some Jupiter, probably like 20 minutes of Jupiter. I think Saturn is done for, and try again in the next couple of nights when Saturn rises a bit earlier, because the view was really kick-ass. That's not to say this moon ain't looking great. Centered here on Tycho, it almost looks like it's frozen, and it is. Of course it is. All right, let me get this camera working again. There's got to be something weird going on with the computer. Bear with me, folks. Just total shit show. Let's do some formidable opponent. Where's my track? Be back in a second. Now you're left for dead. Just pay your debts. Flow. All right, seems like it's working again. Got a beautiful, beautiful moon. It's, I think, 70% waning gibbous right now. Just let me read some of the chat here. Yeah, it looks like it's green, looks like the moon's there, all good. What's up, Asthmatic? What's happening? NGC says the moon is misty looking. I feel like it's pretty clear. I'm not sure, maybe you're still getting some low res viz on it. It's pretty sharp right now. Definitely lots of humidity, but yeah, right now centered on Mare Imbrium, bottom left corner Aristarchus, Mare Frigoris up at the top, and Sea of Serenity to the right underneath the Terminator. Looking nice and crispy. Nice and bubbly. Let's see, Anton is saying the craters can be seen as blisters. I like that idea, like bubbling blisters that popped or that expanded. Definitely within the realm. Yeah, now I can get myself a drink. We can listen to some music. Yeah, it was wavy before for sure. Good deal. Yeah, that definitely threw me for a loop. It gets very aggravating. I know what it's like to watch a stream that's glitching out. Definitely not fun. So I appreciate y'all for hanging out with me again. Edge of space, let's do this. Calling my mind, coming in. Yeah, it's looking mighty beautiful. Figured I'd chat with y'all. Let me know if you have any questions or thoughts. I know Richard's asking about angry catfish. I've seen that channel way back, but definitely don't prescribe to that theory. Can't believe that was such a diversion for science. But yeah, electric universe, electric force, all the way. There's just no doubt at this point. It makes so much sense. Really unifying and generative theory. The connected universe, connected via strands of electrical plasma, really makes everything come into perspective. It gives us answers to all of theology, gives us answers to the geometry of the universe. It gives credence to quantum mechanics. It explains all the Big Bang and standard cosmology stuff. It explains time, reflectance, consciousness. If you take it to that level, to that, if you really are able to kind of dive in, it is completely giving of a theory. And therefore, for me, makes so much sense in terms of reality versus any other theory that exists out there. It's not even worth diving into other thoughts about it, because kind of, if you really just want to move past stuff, you can't really discuss it much further, right? So for me, it's all about new ideas, taking electric universe and changing it, augmenting it, asking new questions, looking at the moon from that perspective. And I also realize it's kind of tough for me to talk about all the historical events of the electric universe, because to me it's really tough to say one way or another what exactly happened with Venus and Mars and the polar alignment. But all of those theories are great, and they spur and create new ideas and new questions. Let's see. Richard says the moon is cartwheeling, wax to wane. Yeah, so it appears that the moon rotates clockwise over the course of the entire ecliptic as it moves across the sky. It makes perfect sense if you put the geometry in three-dimensional orbit and you see how the moon rotates and how the Earth rotates. And really just more so the fact that you can see the moon, and if you track it with the telescope, it will appear to rotate. But does that mean anything in terms of, you know, the dimensionality of it? I don't think so. Jedi Princess says, today I heard a scientist talk to stagnation of ideas in science because academia and the peer review standard stifles fringe thoughts and breakthroughs. Yeah, it does, really simply, but I don't know, there is, you know, the conspiracy side of me, or at least the skeptic in me, makes me think that there are quite a few people on YouTube who have financial backing, at least, you know, scientists, talking head types, who must know about plasma cosmology, and the fact that they ignore it completely seems more suspicious than if they talked about it in a regular, boring way. So again, there are so many more so-called debunking channels, and there are channels talking about scientists don't know, scientists maybe don't know, and they're so confused. But the science is there. I mean, who am I to have seen the moon and seen hexagons? You know, there are so many people who've looked at the moon, and the fact that they haven't put two and two together in terms of the way molecules bond together, the atomic structure, you know, just everything to do with plasma is already being worked on. You know, it's being worked on publicly, and the fact that it's not together with our standard understanding of cosmology is insane. It's not just strange or, there's something going on, something definitely happening. But I definitely don't think it's aliens or the shape of the Earth that supersedes that. It's definitely something more akin to, once you can understand the electric universe or the connected universe via electricity, it implies much grander things in terms of the human and like yourself being formed in the image of the universe, therefore in the image of God, therefore making everything equatable and necessary. It also means that there are things, you know, people can work on time travel, and people can work on telepathy, and people can work on anti-gravity. You know, these things become real physics once you embrace plasma and the ether. Without that, all these so-called technologies seem like they would have to come from outside. But in fact, they're intrinsic to our reality, and somehow a small group of people have it, and they trickle out the technology and they sell it to the masses. You know, and sometimes I think about that concept of, you know, a very select group of people lording control over the masses. And I think about it in terms of the electric universe. And you wonder if, in a way, that's how things are naturally ordered, so that there's kind of a vector to reality where, I know it's not what everybody wants. Nobody really wants to hear that they are not the special ones to have access to the knowledge and the technology, right? It's one of those things that people feel terrible about, or they feel down on themselves if they're being tricked or being lied to, or something is being withheld from them. But in a way, this answer is the answer. It's the one answer. And if everybody knew the one answer to all things, I wonder if that would even work. Could that even be possible? Let's see. Anton saying, the interesting thing with seeing the craters as blisters is that the lightning makes more sense. The lightning coming from the terminator side toward every blister gives a shadow to the left side. I guess so. I'm not sure how that's related, but it's true what you're saying, I mean, in terms of describing it. But the interesting thing was seeing, maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but I think more so that, you know, giant electrical lightning bolts moved across the surface of the moon and carved it up. That's really the long and short of it. And in standard cosmology right now, there are millions and millions of people who think that the moon was hit by a ton of meteors, meteorites, asteroids, comets, who knows what, rocks, basically, flaming rocks, at a certain period 2.5 billion years ago. And that's how the moon is today. And to me, it sounds insane compared to the moon came close to Earth or Mars or some other planet, and it exchanged a large static charge, and that blasted holes into the surface. Like, it's a no-brainer. Let's see. Jedi Princess says, as the analogy has been said many times in different ways, it's mind-boggling when people with eyes refuse to see due to speak. I mean, again, I wonder if it's really a natural occurrence, right? Like, I've talked about the apple seeds and the flesh of the apple being necessary, right? Counterparts. So imagine that the flesh of the apple is all the people who don't understand, who won't see, the unawakened masses. And then the closer you are to the seeds, the more you understand, the more you see. And the closer you are to the center of the core, the more clarity you have ultimately. But maybe there's a downside to it, right? NGC, I'm not sure. What'd you get blocked for? Richard Garcia says, well, I inverted it and can see pyramids show up in blackness in the distance on this channel. I am not sure. I'm not sure what your comment is about with the title of the video. So the moon is disappearing behind my window right now. That's why it's getting dimmer. I'm just going to let it sit there for a bit. Let's move to the north while I keep talking for a sec. I see Tom Murphy says, do you have proof or have you seen buildings and activity on the lunar surface? So there are a couple of ways to answer that, but for me personally, all the channels on YouTube, all of them, every single one of them, from John Leonard Walson to whoever you've seen that shows footage of the moon's surface and says there are buildings and bases, I completely disagree with, and I think they don't believe it themselves. But who knows? Because I could be wrong. But I truly, truly think that nobody has footage of moon bases, buildings, structures of any kind. However, there are remnant scars on the lunar surface. Our buildings and the features on Earth are carved electrically. The surface of the moon is carved electrically. Human bodies are grown electrically. Therefore, if you see a pyramid or what looks like a city on the moon in a telescope, through a telescope, it's going to remind you, and your mind is going to put it together, that it looks somewhat like a city or a pyramid or a base or a craft. But there's no possible way to be sure of that. And therefore, any video that says this is aliens, I don't trust. Absolutely, just across the board, from Secure Team to, honestly, to P&K to absolutely every channel that's ever said, here's an alien, guys. It's a bummer, but this is why I do what I do, because I'm staunch about this. Unless you can prove it, it's really inciting people. It's really divergent from real science. You know, it's like the same stuff that Pierre-Marie Robitaille talks about when they discuss the cosmic microwave background, or any number of scientific theories where the answer is right there and the scientists talk away from it, talk on the side. And they just completely don't accept what's in front of them. And what's in front of you when you talk about the moon and aliens is that there's absolutely no proof. There's zero proof of aliens on the moon. So that's my long answer about bases, but we've seen incredible things on the moon, and the pyramids that we see are the centers of craters. It's because I believe that when an electric discharge breaks off from the anode, the surface of the moon, it leaves a little burst, and that burst manifests as like a little tower at the center of the blister or bubble that has popped, and thus a crater, mare, etc., is going to have these remnant scars that look like pyramids or triple pyramids or canyons and gullies. Let's see. Yeah, so I have no proof of activity on the moon. Let's see. Rumvorax says the seed of the apple usually gets tossed aside. That could be a downside. I wonder though, because think about the power. You know, I think maybe you're right to that degree, right? But the power of the seed in the apple can create a whole other tree from just that seed. Whereas like an apple that's only flesh can't do anything. right? So you need, but okay, right? So in order for the apple to be appealing, you need the flesh. Again, if the apple were all seeds, all knowledge, then it wouldn't be appealing. So yeah, necessitative, both sides of it. Saying stuff about stuff got you blocked. On this channel, in this chat room, or somewhere else? Anton says, I see the celestial movements as one. The difference is somehow different densities with some kind of creation model similar to animals, zodiac, meaning that sun took all those qualities. I think it's just a recursive fractal, right? If you look at your palm right now, your palm has the same dendritic ridges. It has an X. It has kind of the dielectric inertial plane. It has the pinched plasma tube. Your fingers are pinched, pinched plasma. There are hexagons everywhere. Your wrist and your forearm connect at a hexagonal point, and then you have literally a symbolic, not a symbolic, but an actualized representation of the Birkeland filament going through your tendons and your nerves all the way down your arm through every finger. So in fact, when the idea, that we're in the image of God, it makes perfect sense if only if we are all a manifestation of God versus just man or just earth or just the animals, right? It's like absolutely everything from the smallest quantum particle. When I say quantum particle, I just mean anything that you can quantify as a point in space is an oscillator in 3 dimensions. It's a 3-dimensional oscillator in the ether, let's say. And then everything at the very largest scale, there's no reason for that to have different attributes than what's on the very smallest scale, because at every scale, whatever you perceive is relative to your scale. So at the size of humans, planets are huge and ants are tiny. At the scale of ants, humans are huge and whatever else, bacteria, is tiny, and on and on and on. If you've seen any mitochondrial, like electron microscope of mitochondria or cell structure inside, it looks like cities and just giant environments in these tiny cells microscopically. So it would make perfect sense if the entire whole of the universe was also similar to what's in that cell, but on a much more organized, much higher function, right? That's why you can imagine static charge between your finger and a door. And then you can imagine electrical lightning bolts from clouds connected to the earth. And then above that, you have the sprites, and on as Earth connects with the ether and stabilizes within the ether. And then between planets, you have these giant, stretching, vast distances. I try not to use terms like light years apart, because I have a feeling at some point, maybe 1,000 years from now, people will look back at these times when people said things like light years, and they'll laugh at how silly a term that is, because this idea that somehow light travels is pretty silly. My God is a cat, obviously. I love that. Jedi says, if YouTube thinks a comment is referencing a website or a mail, it will push the comment. All right. Anton says, yes, what I mean zodiac, I mean that it's all an animated soul, and the soul shares qualities. I think biological life has a limit, and it starts and stops with celestial, which is light. I love what you're writing, but it's dense, densely packed. What I mean by zodiac, I mean that it's all an animated soul. Okay, and the soul shares qualities. Those are like 3 concepts for me, though. Zodiacal just means that it's centered on a certain axis in space that we, from the perspective of, let's say, humans, you can see a certain set of constellations. So it's a relativistic viewpoint for me, what zodiac really means. And then animated soul, the animus is like, I guess, a resonant oscillator within the ether. And this soul shares qualities, agreed. I think biological life has a limit, and it starts and stops with celestial, which is light. I think you'll have to elaborate on that a little bit, because I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Because I think everything must be biological at every scale. Therefore, anything outside of that can't truly be imagined from within it, right? So there's nothing that we can imagine right now that is exosystemic, right? So it's nothing outside our system can be imagined, because we're imagining it within this system. So even though we feel like we can think there's a limit to things, limits only exist as an arbitrary metric that sounds good, right? And not to you particularly, but like in general, people like this idea of laws. There's a law of this and a law of that and a limit of this and a limit of that. But I think those are very seductive hyperbole, and it is seductive hyperbole. But I feel like biology, the study of life, really extends from the smallest quantum particle to the very largest system that we know of, or that we can perceive. So there is no limit, theoretically, on biological life, in my opinion. All right, let's move over to Jupiter. We've lost the moon. I'll try and go again tomorrow night. I mean, man, it is almost 4 a.m., but I love talking about this stuff, obviously. Let's play a couple more tunes and see what Jupiter's got up to. All right. Yeah, that was really strange. I just turned off the video recording. I wonder if it has something to do with the recording being on at the same time. But a very blurry Jupiter. I think that's due to the humidity. but thankfully it's stable again. And yeah, let's do a few more minutes here. Hopefully it'll clear up a bit. We can see some of the red popping through right now. I think once it gets sharp, it's going to look amazing. NGC, I promise I'm going to get those songs up. I think about it every day, and then the day disappears and I forget to do it. And then I go live and I'm like, oh, forgot again. What's going on? Sully's World and Z-Proxy, welcome you two. It's going okay. It's an interesting night. I've been staying up rather late trying to capture some of these views, and it's just like a roller coaster every time I get on. But thankfully it's good right now. Yeah, I love talking about the electric universe, the connected universe. Please check out Eileen McCusick and Rupert Sheldrake. They do such a great job in explaining the human biofield and how to interact with it, how to feel about it, how to understand it. Eileen McCusick. And then Rupert Sheldrake, honestly, one of the few people who, of the old pioneers, the old guard that still exists, he's still alive, still talking about telekinesis, the morphogenic field, how people are connected, how memory is stored outside the body in harmonic, cymatic, three-dimensional signatures, resonances in the plasma layers. So huge respect for Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert. And then of course Thunderbolts Project. Like I said, I've been catching up on all the Electric Universe UK presentations. And man, they could go so much further, but I also can't hate on it because I love how much they've given us from Wall Thornhill and what's the great one I saw? Was it James Sorensen did an amazing presentation? He was explaining the periodic table in terms of evolutionary states of geometry and resonance. Man, that is kick-ass. This idea of how to explain sapphire projects, alchemy, how to explain elements in terms of relationships and geometry, and how really we've worked with such a convoluted kind of faith-based science for hundreds of years now, and it's time to move on to a much more augmented and detailed and nuanced version of physics and cosmology and chemistry too. You know, chemistry and biology are always kind of siphoned off into niches, but if you brought in, you know, the chemists and the physicists and biologists and also the cosmologists and natural philosophers, you get a much more organic and much more generative version of science. The fact that, you know, they get on TV and they're talking about unifying everything, the theory of everything. You've heard that a million times, but they don't bring in the various disciplines of everything. They bring in a very select few group of gatekeeping theoretical astrophysicists, and yeah, it's a lot of conjecture. Let's see. Richard Garcia, I'm not sure what you're asking, but it seems like you're posting the title of previous videos, so let me know what you're specifically asking. I'm going to try and adjust the focus on Jupiter. Maybe it's my fault. I don't know. I guess it is a bit hazy. A little blobby tonight. Aram Vorak says they're bullshit artists in relation to the theoretical astrophysicists. I get it. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of disappointment. But again, I think from day one, I've tried to mitigate that kind of anger and depression about our current state of science with trying to understand some of these larger principles. And once you get to what I'm talking about, sort of with the apple and the connected universe, you start understanding the reasoning for these systems of power and hidden knowledge, and everything has its place, right? Even if you dislike it, and it makes people feel like they're being fooled, right? And when you're fooled, I was thinking about it today. I was like, why does, you know, I still get comments about, you know, the shape of the Earth. I still get comments about people mad at NASA. And I've kind of moved so far away from that, they don't even register. Like, it's a known quantity that NASA's not going to tell you all the details. It's a known quantity that PBS and Discovery and Popular Mechanics and Phys.org and Universe Today, they're just going to spout the same status quo type bullshit that we've had for years and years. And because they're not going to change their motives or their modus operandi, what's the point? What's the point of getting mad, right? They've given up their hand, and they're like, well, we're never gonna talk about this stuff. So for me, I'm not pissed anymore. Doesn't bother me. But well, I can't say that it doesn't bother me. It definitely bothers me. But I don't get upset anymore, right? I still see things on YouTube, tons and tons of channels, like, for example, Sabine Hassenfelder, you know, contemporary physicists or astrophysicists or quantum physicists questioning the current paradigm. Ooh, there are so many questions and more questions, and maybe the Big Bang was wrong, and maybe it was right. But, you know, Einstein, he was pretty good. He was a pretty cool guy. And I mean, I'm mocking to some degree, but I mean, the videos, even the Electric Universe videos, are a lot about what if this and what if that, and I get that too. But man, like, at some point you got to say, all right, it's this, it's this, it's this, and it's this. Otherwise, like, where are we? Nowhere. So it's always bothered me that, for example, Thunderbolts Project has 5 videos at least, or 5 to 7 videos about the moon in specific. And ego, of course, ego aside, they never, you know, who am I? Nobody, right? But the footage that I have recorded and the thoughts that I convey are very well thought out and consistent and make sense. And yet there's absolutely no reference from Thunderbolts Project to Take Back Space or the moon, real footage of the moon. So it seems so strange to me. Over the years, like 5 years now, 6 years, not a single Take Back Space video is referenced in any other Electric Universe show, except for the Electric View, and I was on Tessa's channel once. But never on Thunderbolts Project, never on See the Pattern, never on any of the debunking channels for sure. And it's not that I have to insert my ego, but more so that look at the surface of the moon and tell me where these hexagons came from. Tell me about the parallel rays emanating from Tycho. Tell me about Aristarchus. Tell me about the late heavy bombardment. Why doesn't Eugene Bagachov talk about the surface of the moon? There's so many questions that I have personally, so I just plow forward and I do what I want to do. But yeah, there's disappointment even within the Electric Universe community. There's egos, Even what I just said may sound egotistical, but I'm more frustrated than anything because I would love unified community where we could actually consider augmenting the previously understood concepts. Oh, for example, like Ken Wheeler. Why does Ken have any beef with Thunderbolts Project? Why do people have beef with Ken Wheeler, Theoria Apophysis, or Angry Photographer? Like, I was on the Electric View and people were talking shit about him, or not talking shit, but just like think he's weird. But what he's saying is brilliant. I mean, it's undeniably brilliant. And tons of Thunderbolts Project videos never mention Eric Dollard, for example. Then you have the whole Suspicious Observers contingency, where all of those guys are like, everybody sucks except for Ben and Suspicious Observers. And then you have Sky Scholar, Pierre-Marie Robitaille, who is on vacation now, but he never mentions the moon. He never mentions Donald Scott. He never mentions Thunderbolts Project by name. It's the strangest thing. Imagine, I mean, yes, of course he was at Thunderbolts 2015 or whatever, but it's so strange how we're already so fractured. We're already, 10 million less views per video. And yet even within the ranks, you can't get unification. It's extremely frustrating and disappointing if you allow it to be that. For me, I have to stay away from it because it's hard to look at and hard to not want to just tell people, get your shit together, right? Come together and discuss things. I mean, I guess I'm doing it right now, but think about how many shows I've done where like, I don't care what other people are doing. I'm like, come to the show, come, let's talk about this stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just ranting at this point. Let's see. NGC says, oh, there are a lot of comments, but NGC says, they made up the Big Bang to replace religion. Even though that's a very short statement, it's a lot to unpack. Because I've gone full circle on Big Bang is real, to Big Bang is totally fraudulent, to the Big Bang has physical merits, but is not the inception point. Because in order for a bubble to form, or an oscillator to form, or any number of events to happen, you need what the Big Bang is, right? You just do it. It is definitely an event that has transpired, in my opinion. However, it's not an event where matter came from nothing, right? The Big Bang completely does away with the ether in terms of mathematics, in terms of cosmological principles, and those are there are 10 other things if you look it up, but just those two things. It does away with the ether, and it does away with, I mean, let's just say cosmic geometry, the torus and the hourglass shape. Never talks about this in terms of Birkeland filaments, never talks about the Big Bang happening within an etheric plasma. So if you have a Big Bang within an etheric plasma, it's very possible that this Big Bang was a nodal point, a plasmoid, that is the beginning of our branch of the universe. So I've come all the way back around to the fact that there is evidence for some sort of event like this, but it is heavily lacking in terms of detail. And of course, they talk about it as if it were a religious event, because it's almost like the virgin birth, right? Nothing before it, creatur ex nihilo, creation from nothing. But if it's happening within an etheric conscious plasma, then it's not from nothing. Then it comes from something. It just oscillates into a more complex order of life. Let's see, Anton says, can you write up some good YouTube channels? Check out the description of my video, all the videos, and I have a whole list of great recommendations, the best that I have found so far. I think Thunderbolts Project is a heliocentric panic save. Again, the heliocentricity, this idea of spheres and flat pancakes is just such a distraction and a completely pointless thing, in my opinion, that people get bogged down in. I can't believe that we're still here 5 years later, people still worried about the shape of the Earth and not the connections of giant electrical cables in space, the fact that we are in the image of God, you made your own brain and eyeballs, we have telekinesis and telepathy that are possible things that can happen in our reality. We have anti-gravity based on this concept. Here we go with this ad again. I definitely have malware on this computer. I have to let this ad play out, apparently. Thankfully, you guys are not hearing this. Jesus Christ. Yo, Copper Tropicals, I see you in there. All right. Ad is over. Some ad for Hardee's. So stupid. Yeah, so what I was saying is that this whole idea of FE is just absolutely ridiculous. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's such a distraction and a totally pointless venture. The science behind it is non-generative. All it is just a pointing fingers and an insistence on facts that don't exist. That's the way it is. You don't like it, I'm sorry, but I'm so glad y'all are not hearing those stupid commercials that are popping up. But anyway, let's see. Chappelle, yeah, I've seen that. Sorry if I misinterpreted. What I meant with heliocentric panic save is that the model is just an abstract. It has nothing with FE. Tycho Brahe's model is better. I mean, are you talking about, you mean Brahe, or you mean or Kepler? Kepler's third law. I mean, this idea that heliocentric or non-heliocentric, it just means that it just really refers to perspective, right? It means it's a relativistic perspective from the Earth that things orbit us. And when you're in a room, the room is around you. You know, this is centricity. So heliocentric, solar-centric, I'm forgetting the actual terms of it, but the fact that every single dot in this universe is its own observer. To that observer, everything rotates around it. And it makes sense geometrically. So therefore, look, and I understand your point actually, just the fact that Thunderbolts Project and a number of other channels that I like a lot tend to talk about the standard model as if it were fact. I think that's what you're alluding to. So for me, I get that, and it's definitely annoying. Sorry if I misunderstood your comment. NGC says, it is possible that I am dreaming right now and that all of my perceptions are false. So again, let's talk about true versus false, right? Even stuff that is wrong is still true. There's almost nothing truly false in our reality. Everything is true. Anything that you can see or think or breathe or eat is a truism. You know, falsehood is conceptually an abstraction of reflecting the truism that is life. And if that's too complicated, it just means that we like to create resistance. And like in an electrical circuit, we need resistance in order to create, to move electrical charge and flow through the circuit. And I feel like concepts, even the idea that the wool is being pulled over people's eyes is a form of resistance. Even flat Earth is a form of resistance, right? Now, to relate it back to the dream being false, you just wonder, for me, that, I just wonder that for me, everything seems real. Everything seems true. And then these ideas about wrong and right and false and true are things that we as humans overlay as a means to interact with life. I don't know. I think I'm trying to get some sort of handle on it, but I get what you're saying. Or maybe you're quoting something, and the great I Am is just speaking through us. Yeah, we could be dreaming right now, but we could also be oscillating at a certain frequency. We could be the creators of this whole thing. And in fact, like, that is more so what the geometry says. You know, if somebody said, what do you know to be true? I would say that if I can look at my hand right now and I can see a correlation between my hand and Jupiter, that there's some sort of connectivity there that allows me to establish my place in relation to Jupiter. And therefore, that is a truism for me. And a falsehood is, I guess, if I saw Jupiter and saw something totally different than myself. No, that's not really what it would be. But I don't know, I think even the word false is oddly seductive. It's just something you want to say, oh, that's false. It's true or false. There's something addictive about it. So I don't know, I went down some different rabbit hole there, but maybe I didn't make any sense on that, on that rant. I'm just thinking to myself. It is 4:20 a.m., so I'll have one last smoke with y'all. And was it Descartes? Descartes? Ren's Descartes? Astralis says, if I was the moon and could only see the moon, I might think it was fiat. There's no way it looks flat. It doesn't look flat. It looks like a fisheye lens. And you could make up all the abstractions about why it's a fisheye lens, but if you looked at it from a distance, yeah, I guess it would look like a... But it wouldn't make any sense within our reality. When you look up at the sky, there is depth to it. And the eye can... I mean, obviously we can sense depth. And so I would look up at the moon, and yes, it's like a perfect silver disk, and you, for a moment, you can think, wow, that's an amazing two-dimensional object. And then instantly, your mind has depth. Your mind provides the depth, and the moon is obviously some sort of spherical object that has hardened. And actually, I'm glad I went down this segue, because this line of thinking, because I wanted to talk about something I saw recently about petrification. And it's very likely that the moon was actually, had land and water. I mean, this is completely postulate, right? So I'm just making this up, but I was thinking about Peter Mungo Jupp, and I was thinking about, who else was it? Who was talking about it? Was it Andy Hall? It was Andrew Hall, yeah. Andrew Hall just did another Thunderbolts Project video, and he was talking about how the Larimer Cross, just more so that electricity has carved up the landscape of our planets. So he referenced Peter Mungo Jupp and talking about petrification, and then they talked about how a power, like a power line broke, and then this pole fell and rested on this power line for, I don't know, was it like 4 hours, 4 days? Who knows? But anyway, a few years later, they found this power tower. Power tower. What the fuck is it called? Just like a power cable beam or pole or whatever, power pole. And, just the old school ones, the wooden ones. And it had turned to rock. And then I started to think, I was like, oh, is this when enough discharge hits organic matter, so skin, flesh, a certain type of resonant plasma that's fleshy, after a while, with enough discharge, it actually turns into harder and harder, it calcifies. So that's where you would have fossils, that's where you would have bones that have turned into rock. That's where you would get, I'm throwing a lot of concepts together, but like, humans turn to dust, when they rot. They rot, but after a while, actually, no, they don't turn to rock, but potentially there is this idea that humans were turned to stone via the thunder turning to dust to dust. And then I start to think about the moon in terms of how if the moon was zapped long and hard enough, then it would ultimately just turn to dust. And that's what we're not looking at the moon right now, we're looking at Jupiter. But the surface of the moon looks like maybe it was cooked. It was cooked to a point where it petrified and it turned in, look at all the mare, the Maria, are like giant oceans that might have just hardened versus giant lava pools that cooled. It's very fascinating. I do also think that that craters could be bubbles that were heated and then popped. But again, like the mare are incredibly geometric, but also in standard theory, they're incredibly deep. Mare Imbrium was supposed to have been hollowed out. Mare Imbrium is massive. Mare Crisium is massive. Any number of the mare, if they had truly been excavated fully, might have destroyed the orbit of the moon entirely or fractured the moon from top to bottom. It doesn't make any sense as to the depth of the mare, versus the mare are really electrical winds and weather patterns moving across the surface, scraping parts of the regolith clear of matter and pushing matter to the mountain ranges and to the edges of craters and leaving a secondary surface, the thinner layer right under the skin of the moon, to be revealed. That makes way more sense to me. Tons of matter would have been moved, but not the kind of matter that it would take to excavate Sea of Serenity or Sea of Tranquility. Any number of those, it would absolutely decimate the moon, in my opinion. Right? Eurydice petrified. Exactly. Thank you. Good pull. I was thinking about that a bit. I knew a girl once named Eurydice. I actually met a girl when I was a child, and Eurydice, as I can't say it without sounding drunk. Eurydice. I played with her for like one afternoon when we were like 8 years old, and we just like went and found rocks in a garden, and then never saw her again. But with a name like that, you're gonna remember. It was like the first part of that movie with Gwyneth Paltrow, but it didn't have the same end. Anton says, the moon and the sun is just reflections of ether holographic field, and our animal eyes are direct, but the field is holographic, so we can't perceive it. I love everything you're writing, but again, highly dense comments. Like dense in a good way, not like dense in a stupid way. Yeah, our eyes send a signal, and then another oscillator sends its signal, or is constantly sending a signal. Let's say, like you're looking, your perspective is shifting constantly, moving around your field. Therefore, your eyes are basically sending an energy signal to your shells at any given point. So if you're looking in the direction of another shell, of another oscillator that's sending its perspective your way, then you're going to find this null zone where you have mutual mass acceleration to this cymatic pattern that is a merger of the two oscillations. And it's happening constantly. It's happening with Jupiter right now. It's happening with me looking at the screen. It's happening with you hearing what I'm saying through vibrations in the ether. It's constantly overlapping complex geometry manifesting in the ether, and we are interacting with it at every level, from the chakras of the throat and the mind and the stomach to the electrical filaments coming out of the fingertips. And the fact that I am using the same geometry, the same Birkeland current that's flowing through my crown chakra and creating resonance in my throat to send it to this microphone, which is its own kind of system, sending that to the computer, processing it. Y'all are hearing it. It's an unbelievable system that's completely connected right now in so many different ways that it almost boggles the mind, but we are doing it. So while it's intensely unbelievable, it's completely believable. But let's play a tune here. Tune a tune. They've completely ruined iTunes. I thought the last update was bad, but this is even worse. Like, I don't want to listen to other people's stuff. Search my library and not iTunes, please. Thank you. No. They do the same thing on SoundCloud. So like, I pay for SoundCloud Pro, and I sometimes use it when I do the back porch streams, and it makes no sense to me. It's like, first of all, it's the worst possible music, all this new contemporary auto-tune bullshit. But why do I have to listen to another? It's extremely frustrating. All right, Jupiter's fading, and I'm trying to find this track here, but I'm trying to find this song for you. I feel like everything has changed here. In a while, it's just like me talking, ranting, complaining. I think I found it. Oh, did I delete it? That's so weird. I feel like maybe I named it something. There we go. Tis indeed. Tis indeed. There we go. And putting up with all the buffering crap tonight.
Until the sheet on the stage.
last night. Almost entirely. That's just ridiculous. Yeah, y'all, if you can hear. Well, I'm going to say this, I hope dealing with this crap tonight. So I'll try and come on again tomorrow, day after, and see some more Jupiter and Saturn. I doubt I'll stay up for the moon, and I hope y'all have an excellent day tomorrow and start to your week. And if not, I'm going to write all of this in the channel anyway. So